Of Randwick Local Planning Panel meeting of the 8th of March 2021. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. My name is Annalise Tor and I'm the chair of the panel. Joining me today via video conference are Jan Morell and Jason Perica as expert members, and the community representative is Mia Chow. In an effort to minimise the spread of COVID-19 and in the best interests of the health and safety of the community, council staff and panel members, the operation of Randwick Local Planning Panel has been reviewed and amended to address public health requirements and meet our statutory obligations. The panel will be holding its meetings remotely using conferencing technology until further notice. Members of the public and applicants have been invited to listen to and or address the panel via teleconference. The panel has individually undertaken inspections for all DA items from the street and surrounding area and or electronically. We have been provided with an assessment report prepared by council staff who have also briefed the panel on each application and the planning proposal. Today we have people registered to address the panel. The order of speakers for each item will be firstly councillors, objectors and those supporting the application, including the applicant or their representative. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. Any extension of time will be at my discretion as chair. The panel has been provided with copies of all the submissions received in response to the public exhibition of the application and forwarded a copy of late correspondence. Therefore, there is no need for speakers to repeat all the points made in those submissions or what previous speakers have said. Please focus on the key points you wish to understand and consider. The applicant may wish to address issues raised in the council's report, including the response to conditions and the issues raised by an objector. We may ask questions of the speakers to clarify our understanding of what is being said. We expect that each speaker will be heard in silence while they are addressing the panel, and that courtesy and respect will be observed throughout this teleconference. I ask that everyone mutes their microphone unless they are called on to speak, noting that we have the ability to mute all attendees or individuals. After hearing from the speakers on all items, the public meeting will be closed and the panel will then deliberate and make our decision. The minutes of the panel's decision, including our reasons, will be available on Council's website as soon as possible after the public meeting. You should be aware that the panel's meetings are recorded and the audio recordings will be uploaded to Council's website as soon as possible. Each member of the panel has been asked prior to the meeting to advise whether they have a conflict of interest to declare in relation to any item on the agenda. I can confirm that Jason Perica has declared a perceived conflict of interest with item D1921, 14 Ocean Street, Clovelly, and he will not take part in this matter. No other conflicts of interest have been declared. So we'll now proceed to item 1, which is the planning proposal for Randwick Comprehensive LEP, Housing Investigation Areas, Affordable Housing, Low-Rise Diversity Area, Minimum Subdivision Lot Sizes and exempting to dual occupancy provisions of the Low-Rise Housing Diversity Code. We have 2 speakers, both councillors, so if Councillor Beach is there, if you can speak now.
Hi everyone, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Happy International Women's Day. Look, I won't speak for long. I'm here just to speak very generally on the proposal. I did request that this matter be deferred, A, because a number of interested councillors are finding it difficult to attend today due to other commitments, and B, because I understand that the very large amount of residents who will be, I know this is not the consent authority for this matter, however, there are a great number of residents who wouldn't have received a notification, and so they're not in a position to either make a submission for consideration by the panel or attend in person. So I will note that there were requests to perhaps defer this matter, and I would be saying for any point along the way of this LEP that residents and the community, businesses, anyone affected, there's many institutions as well, should have the opportunity to receive a notification and to make a submission or speak at the panel, which was not the case in this instance. I will be putting forward a case just to say all along the way, particularly in West Ward, but I know right across the LGA, that there is a great deal of concern about the level of overdevelopment, certainly in West Ward, and particularly the area currently the subject, or has been the change of the K2K development. There's a huge amount of development on the slate in that area, and those residents have not supported that overdevelopment or that development. There's going to be another 5,000 dwellings in that area. And any further increase in density will have a significant impact on the amenity of those residents. I'd also like to say that I'd like the panel to, with respect to consider ways to retain and increase tree canopy. Any further changes to lot sizes, any further development has an impact on our ability to keep our city green and cool. And a place that people are able to live in, a place where what remains of our wildlife, to have some kind of habitat. Every time a tree comes down, the local wires team gets a call, and those birds and animals are impacted. So I'd also like the panel to consider that. There was no provision made for parking in any of the new developments, so there will be increased congestion in that area. That's another big concern of local residents that I'm putting forward to you. So I can see I've got the timer coming. That's all I've got to say, so thank you very much for your time.
So you didn't need an extension? Or?
That's okay. They were the main points I wanted to put across. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just put on record that I didn't receive any request for this matter to be deferred, so I don't know if there was one sent through, but nothing came through to me as chair.
Well, I did send that through to the Director of City Planning last week.
Okay. So I'll just check if any of the panel members have any questions. No. All right, thank you. The next speaker is Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to address the panel today in relation to GR1/21, the Randwick Comprehensive Planning Proposal. I'm Councillor Cathy Nielsen. My concerns are in relation to the housing investigation areas. Would hope that the panel would advise Council not to aim for such ambitious targets, specifically in these three areas. West Randwick, HIA, is currently 12 metres, whilst the proposed controls are 24 metres, 7 stories on Allison Road, and 16.5, 5 stories on King Street. A more acceptable increase would be 5 stories on Allison Road and 3 stories in King Street. Kensington North, HIA, to go from 12 metres permissible now to 23 metres is also too high. A 5-storey maximum would be more acceptable, albeit many would argue that is too high. Arthur Street, HIA, proposes an increase along High Street from Wannsee Road to Clara Street, opposite the University of New South Wales and Prince of Wales Hospital, which I agree is reasonable. However, the transition to the streets behind, namely Arthur Street and Blenheim Street, need a more considered approach. 8 stories on High Street to 4 stories on Arthur Street is not acceptable, and the transition from High Street to Blenheim Street needs to acknowledge the oldest house in Randwick, Blenheim House, at number 17 Blenheim Street. It's located opposite numbers 18 and 20, and they go through until High Street. There needs to be at these specific sites surely an increased setback from the street frontage and reduced height. I realise that the proposed changes in the report are meeting the request for more dwellings, but what Randwick has is a shortage of single houses, and many would argue that more should be done to retain a mix of housing types, which leads to a more vibrant and diverse community. Town planning, strategic planning, is not just about mathematics and predictions. It is also about people, and unfortunately it's people, our residents, who are forced to accept change, which can sometimes destroy the very fabric of their lives. Too much uplift is not good. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from the panel? All right, thank you. So this matter will be deferred for the panel's deliberation after the public meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'll now skip to item D10 21 82 Yorktown Parade, Maroubra, because we have no people registered to speak for that item, and Mr. Periker has a conflict with the other item, so it's best that we just deal with 82 Yorktown Parade, Maroubra first. So as there are no speakers, unless the panel members have anything to say on this matter, it'll just be deferred for our deliberations after the public meeting. All right, so now we'll go to D921 14 Ocean Street, Clovelly. Mr. Periker will now leave the meeting, and as this is the last item on the public agenda, he will not rejoin the meeting. It'll just it'll be closed in his absence.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And just to confirm, I've had no communication whatsoever with anyone regarding this application and not been involved in any of the consideration or deliberations today. Thank you.
Thanks. So in relation to this item, we have an objector, Mr. Luke Maloney, to speak. If you're there, Mr. Maloney. No? We might move on to Mr. Paul Say and Mr. Tom Horden. As I understand, you're both going to share your 3 minutes time and speak specifically about the concerns that impact you. So, Mr. Paul Say.
That's correct. Thank you, Chair. So my name is Paul Say. I live at 15 Northumberland Street, which is at the rear of the subject property, 14 Ocean Street. My neighbour Tom Horden at 11 will also speak. However, we're representing 10 local residents who would like their concerns considered by the panel. None of us are planning experts, and we accept the rules set down by the state and local government for our area. At the same time, we trust people like you make fair judgments, particularly where planning guidelines are vague. Our main issues with the application relate to floor space ratio, in particular visual impact, and view sharing, two of the vaguer guidelines, particularly given that the block is less than 300 square metres, and I'm sure you're aware of the impact of that. Whilst the issues affect both our properties, I'll speak to view sharing and Tom will speak to the loss of amenity due to visual bulk. The proponent C is a little misleading with regard to impact on views. It states that the reduced height to RL 41.3, and I quote, ensures retention of views of the horizon to the dwellings to the rear at number 11 and number 15. This RL is 29 centimetres or about a foot higher than the roof line of the subject house. This tends not to be mentioned anywhere, even in the planner's, council planner's report. House RL is 41.03. So it appears a little bit reckless in the absence of any formal survey or the usually required site posts. And to my naked eye, we've only got about a foot of horizon views anyway, so this is quite a serious issue for us. View sharing, as I said, is an esoteric concept at best, but like visual bulk, we've already twice debated and settled the matter for this property, both through this panel and originally when the house was built, all within the current LEP. When the original DA was approved, the developer stated in their statement of environmental effects, view sharing is consistent with the previous DA on the site, and we have kept all roof levels the same so as not to impact on neighbours' views. That's a quote directly from this C. Referring to the previous DA, also within this LEP, referred to a significant amount of community engagement, and the C spent a great deal of time on view sharing with comments such as, and I quote, all efforts were made to retain the horizontal expanse of view. Step the building down to the site to minimise the impact. Set the benchmark for view sharing with the design so that the horizon views of the properties to the rear were not broken by the roof of the building. My final point, Chair, is that we've already shared our views with the subject property. And whilst the council's planner may think the new studio has only minimal impact in our view, There's our contention that any impact on our view is unfair. Consider sharing again as analogous with sharing a piece of cake with someone who eats their half and then comes back to ask for a share of the other half. I'm going to pass over to Tom to speak on behalf of the visual bulk. We might be a little bit over. I hope you excuse us.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I'll just check if there's any questions from panel members. No. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Horden?
No, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, can I just ask one question of Mr. Say, and that's in respect of, were there any inspections done for this particular DA, and to understand a view analysis?
There were. This is a DA that was knocked back last year by the panel. So there was inspections then. There were inspections more recently by the council's planner. There was a photograph taken, and all the images that you see have been produced by the proponent. As I said, no surveys, no sighting posts, and again, to my naked eye, we literally have about 30 centimetres, which is exactly how high above the house height garage goes.
Okay, thank you.
So specifically, I don't know if you've got the planning report in front of you, but figure 11 on page 83 you're saying that you don't think that's what would be the correct result from the proposal?
I don't believe it's the case. Again, that's been produced by the proponent. We don't have the resources or the capital to go and put up siding lines and things. But literally, you can see that. You can see the height of the house and the horizon view.
Yes.
The house next door, that's a montage. That house has got the exact same height as the proponent's house. It's being built now, the one with the big curvy roof. So I think that's an exaggeration. And as I said, the peak of the studio garage is an RL of just over a foot above the house line.
So just checking those figures, you said the studio is 41.3 and the house is 41.03, and number 12 you're saying is also 41.03 at the top of the curve. Is that right?
That's correct. Well, it's not built yet.
That's your understanding.
But their plan basically says that their house height is exactly the same as number 14.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Horden?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. I'll talk about the floor space ratio. The applicant's house has been built under the current LEP, which guides planners to consider floor space ratio through the following lens: to ensure that development does not adversely impact on the amenity of the adjoining and neighbouring land in terms of visual bulk, loss of privacy or overshadowing in views. The subject house already has an FSR of 0.08 to 1, which is well over the FCR allowable for even slightly larger box of 300 square metres. The addition of a large studio will increase the FCR to about 0.9 to 1. The applicant C also suggests that there will be no visual impact, which is wrong, as the visual bulk of a 40 square metre studio built over a double garage will stick out like a sore thumb. And I've shared an image with the chair just around that potential impact on my family's property, and you can imagine the impact on others. Notably, 12 Ocean Street is under construction with an FCR of 0.75 to 1, and 16 Ocean Street was completed several years ago at 0.6 to 1, both with lot sizes of less than 300 square metres. Both houses have low visual impact, single-level structures facing the rear lane. Look, in conclusion, visual bulk considerations for small lots and view sharing are highly subjective, and it makes perfect sense for the panel to take into account the fact that the subject property already enjoys an above-average FCR and has already shared its views. The LEP hasn't changed, and the local community's feeling about the loss of amenity created by increased visual bulk is demonstrated by the many submissions made against this application. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions from the panel members? All right, thank you. I'll just see if Mr. Maloney is there now. Do we know if we have, Anthea, do we have Mr. Maloney at all?
I tried to contact him and couldn't reach him.
Okay. All right. So we'll now hear from the architect on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Chris Jordan.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'd just like to go through. We generally agree with the recommendation by the planning officer. We went to a lot of work with Frank Coe to make some amendments which he thought were satisfactory for getting this approved after the last DA. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that the two objectors said which were not quite right. Something that Paul said, the DA approval for 12 Ocean Street, where we've shown it higher than our existing house. That is in fact approved about 800 millimetres higher than our proposed house, so our approved house. So our 3Ds in that respect are correct with the approval of 12 Ocean Street. I can show you, if I turn around my screen, I can show you the, where are we? So just on the left there, this is the DA consent for number 12. So on the left is our house, and on the right is the one with the curved roof, and that
Sorry,
clearly...
I can't see the whole thing. I can only see a very small section of it. So
it's just on my screen. Yeah, so there's the flats on the right. So I'm just coming in closer. On the left is the existing house at number 14, and on the right is the DA approval at number 12. So it's much higher than number 14.
So what's the maximum RL for that house? Sorry.
Look, we estimated it about 800 millimetres. The print that we got from council is illegible, but as you can see there, it is much higher.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we measured it off the drawing at 800 millimetres. The second thing, just a couple of things that Tom said. The FSR does not apply to this site because it's under 300 square metres, and the studio is not 40 square metres. It's 20 square metres. There's additional floor area in the basement. So the studio proposes not as large as he pointed out. We agree with the conditions proposed by the planning officer about the privacy treatments to the windows. They were already proposed in our drawings, but I believe the planning officer just included those to reiterate those requirements. There are currently, I think Tom was concerned about overlooking from the studio into his backyard. Those are currently addressed by the obscure glass, and the awning windows are unopenable beyond 125 millimetres. And there's already, that backyard's already overlooked by many neighbours along Northumberland Street, including number 15, whose living room balcony can look directly down into the swimming pool area. Something else, just in terms of bulk and scale.
So I'll just interrupt you because you are over time.
Okay.
You need
just one more point.
Yeah.
The wall height control for the laneway is 4.5 metres. Our proposed wall height is 3.84 metres, and we're overall substantially lower than the overall height limit.
May I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
The maximum RL of the house, what is that, Mr. Jordan?
I'll just check my drawings. The house is 41.03.
Okay, and can you tell me the maximum RL of the studio?
41.32.
So it's actually higher than the house?
It is.
Well, and that will be the leading edge, which will be the obstruction of view as opposed to what the house is.
No, if you look at the town planners report figures 25, you can see that it's higher things closer to you, unless they're much, much higher, don't cause the view loss. It's the front edge of something that's further away that will cause the view loss when you're looking down at something. So if you go to the town planners report figures 2025,
well, what you're saying is dependent upon the RL of the floors behind that are trying to view over.
yeah.
Was a view analysis undertaken for this?
Yeah, so these photos are taken from the balconies of number 11 and number 15.
Sorry, just interrupt. When you say figure 25, I can't see a figure for 25. I've got figure 9, 10, 11.
Okay, that might have gotten renumbered somewhere, but they're the 3D photo montages.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see how on the house part of it, it's the front of the house that's causing the view loss rather than the back edge of the house.
Yeah, but are these certified photo montages? Because what Ms. Morell's saying, obviously it depends on how high your relative level behind as to whether it's the front that's the leading edge or the...
Yeah, those photos were taken from the balconies of the objectors' houses. They were there. Well, Tom wasn't there, but Paul was there. He saw that we didn't hold the camera up really high. I think they were taken from in between a standing and sitting position. And the planning officer took some photos as well. So his photos would also show that the front edge of the house is what causes any view loss. So even though something's a bit higher than something else, depending on where the view is, the lower thing can in fact cause the view loss rather than the high thing.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you know what the RL of the balcony was that you were on?
No. The way we photo match, so we have a drawing in 3D of the existing buildings neighbouring, and then we were able to view match that quite accurately. It's how everyone does it.
So things like the garage in that photo showing from the level balcony of 11 Northumberland Street, the little triangular roof of the garages to the right.
Yeah.
Do you know what the RL of that pitch of roof is at all?
No, that was not constructed when we carried out our survey.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. Just to clarify, you said earlier the total area gained through building this studio will be around 20 square meters only. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 20 or 22 for the studio. Yes.
And where did that figure 40 come from?
I'm not sure.
Chair, can I raise the 40 square metres? Cool.
Well, as I understand it, it's because of the increase in basement area.
The basement
area.
area.
No, that's sorry.
Which basement area are we talking about? So you have to do with this
towards the front of the house, there was a previously approved basement area that was approved in the original DA.
All right, I'll just ask Mr. Say to explain what he meant by where he's getting the 40 square metres from.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, one of The issue for us isn't so much floor space ratio. So I've no doubt that the net area of the studio is as described by the architect. This is a studio built over a double garage that's roughly 6 metres by 7 metres. So we're talking about visual bulk of something that is roughly 40 square, maybe slightly higher, 40 square metres in size. And that's our issue. And just as an aside, double garage is not allowed in these areas. So when any of these concepts of studios were anticipated, they're over single garages. So it's quite a big blocky thing. If you can indulge me just on the view.
Sorry, no, I wasn't giving you the opportunity to further go at your submissions. It was really just for you to explain what you're basing the 40 square metres on. And as I understand what you're saying, it's the 40 square metres is the total size of the garage and the studio. But, all right, I've just got another question of the architect. Just in your drawings, on a few drawings, let's say 05C, at the front of the house, you've got an area shaded also in the yellow as if there's a change, but there's nothing mentioned about that. So I just want to confirm that there is no change to that.
Oh, that was some cladding, some material change, and that was approved in the DA.
So that's previously been approved and doesn't form part of this application?
No.
Yeah, okay.
Only the parts that are got the red clouding around it.
Okay. So any further questions of Mr. Jordan?
No. I'd just like to ask, when was the garage, this double garage, because it's a rather large structure itself on the laneway, when was it constructed?
Would have been constructed with the house. I'm not sure what Mr. Say's talking. There's double garages everywhere in the street, including his garage. So I'm not sure why double garages are not permitted.
Well, we can ask council.
Yeah, we can ask that, yeah.
Actually, maybe the council officer could just confirm whether they are or are not permitted.
Annalise, just give me 1 minute and I'll get back to you straight away.
All right. While you're waiting to do that, I'll just see if we've got Mr. Maloney at all. Still not there.
Annalise, we just resent him a link. However, I haven't seen him join.
So he's trying to join, is he? Or?
Sure, we just resent a link to him. However, we just had someone join in, but it probably wasn't Mr. Maloney.
Okay.
I think there was some confusion as to how many people we could, how many minutes we had. So I'm not sure.
Well, he was the first person to register. He was, so he was allowed to speak.
Yeah, if I could just fill in the space.
I'll just find out what. William, have you found out that information? So, Mr. Say, you want to explain where you got the single garage from?
Yeah, so that's that comes back from the crossovers. We're only allowed a single crossover. You're only allowed a garage door that's single size. Our blocks of land are much larger, but the council has been allowing double garages, so that wasn't so much the issue of my point. It was simply that this is a very big garage on a very small block of land with a very big studio.
So when you say a very small block of land, what's the floor area of the house? I mean, it doesn't look like there's very much space around the house itself, which is 2 stories. You've got a small piece of landscaping in the rear, but apart from that, it's a pretty high site coverage. So I presume the FSR is rather large, and the square meterage of the house is considerable. So what is that, Mr. Jordan?
Well, first I should point out we're not proposing to change the footprint of the house.
And yep, this goes.
The site coverage is unchanged.
Yeah, I understand that, but it also goes to the point about the necessity for it. What's the necessity for a studio above this garage when you have a house that's already considerably large?
I've got no answer for that. That's a very subjective question. It's allowable. There's no control on the floor space ratio on these sites. So we've got, in terms of gross floor area for FSR purposes, the proposal has 210 square metres, which has an FSR of 0.77 to 1. If as an example, under the codes SEP of exempt and compliant development, if we want to look at some floor areas and how big things should be or whatever, under the codes SEP, and this is something that could be taken up by anyone on Northumberland Street or wherever. That's not a heritage conservation area. Maximum gross floor area. Look, under exempt and compliant development, maximum GFA is 75%. For a site 250 to 300 square metres. So we're absolutely consistent with exempt and compliant development controls. Not that they're applicable anyway, and we're 100% compliant with the council controls.
All right, thank you. William, you were reporting back on single garages?
Yes, Chair, you're correct. The minimum width for a site for a double garage is actually 12 metres. So ordinarily, if a double garage were proposed on this site, it would not be entertained. However, in this case, the garage is existing.
12 metres, okay. So, and the width of this one, sorry, William?
I believe, Christopher, it's just over 7. Is that correct?
The site?
6.2.
Yeah, I'll just check. What is this?
7.6, I believe.
Sorry. Yes, that's right.
7.6. Okay, so, right, thank you. Thank you for that, Will.
All the way along the laneway, the garages go full width on a lot of the sites, including even the recently approved one next door at 16 Ocean Street. And that's a similar width site to the existing house, and that's a very recent approval.
All right, thank you. I understand that Mr. Maloney is not going to speak, so unless there's any other questions of anyone, that concludes this item. And that concludes the public meeting. So as I said before, the public meeting will now be closed and the panel will reconvene to deliberate and determine these matters, and our decisions and our reasons for our decisions will be on the council's website as soon as possible. So the meeting's concluded at 1:42. Thank you.
Thank you.
Annalise, do we stay on?
It looks like we log out and then go on to the next link.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right, so do you want just a 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene at sort of 10:02? And if you can ring Jason and let him know.
We'll do, Annalise. And also Kerry just messaged me asking if we're finished. So perhaps if the panel were able to deliberate on that strategic item first, I'll let him know that perhaps in 5 minutes' time we'll be ready.
Is that all right? Yeah, okay. We'll deal with the hard one first.
And Andrea, would you mind just resending the link to the next meeting, please? Or will. Thank you.
Of course,
All
Jen.
right, so 10 to.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.